Hey, so today I thought I'd show you my sketchbook setup and all the little different systems I have now for sketching. Since 2020, I think 1 to 22, I spent some time on my sketchbook here. And yes, just wanted to show what I've done, which I don't see many other people do. So as you can see, various sketches here and all the rest of it. But this system is kind of what I wanted to talk about today. So yeah, what I wanted was obviously I'm really a big fan of James Gurney's art books. Obviously, the Dinotopia is fantastic, but he also does amazing, really great, YouTube videos on how to do plein air sketching and plein air oils and watercolors, and he shows his whole setup and techniques. And there's a lot of people online who have their setup for when they're traveling around. And although do have a setup very similar to his setup, because I've followed a lot of the way he does his techniques and sets his workstation up when he's on the go, I thought I'd show you this. So what I've done is just taken these, I think they're like Derwent pencil cases and stuff, they roll out, and I've cut them up a bit. So here, like example here, if this comes off, this can come separate. So if I don't want to be so heavy on the go, I can just take this with, like, let's say a separate sketchbook or something, and I can go off like that if I want a bit of a lighter setup. I used to use a lot of these ones, but to be fair, they're just a little heavier and a bit chunkier, and it is nice to have a big wide space. So these I got them actually for free at an art shop. They just sort of handed them out with a bunch of other stuff I bought, and so we're just giving them out. But these are actually really, really handy because you don't really need a huge, massive amount of paper when you're traveling everywhere. In fact, you only want a small little amount of paper, so it's really light and you can travel around with it. The only problem is it's obviously a bit wobbly here, so I thought, how can I adapt this? So what I did here is obviously this is set this little book separate. It's very similar to that one, and then it's just basically like this. Now obviously I can do this up nicer, but what this is you can just put these books in, obviously because it's from it, or this when I get a new one, I just pop it back in here, so it's in there, and I can obviously close it up and walk around with it like so. And again, if I don't want the weight of those extra colour pencils, because although the colour pencils are amazing, it's nice to be able to have a lighter setup and go, okay, I just want to take this, and I'll take this. So what comes with what's cool about the pencils themselves, as well as obviously the paper setup, obviously I've spoken about how it's much lighter to have it like this, and also A4 is much nicer. You have much more space to work from if you want to do a larger sketch than the smaller ones, and the smaller ones work fine, but again, I just used to carry them around. They can be a little chunkier, and here we go, it's an example, a little chunkier, and can be a little slightly more weighted. It's obviously got a strong card on either side. It works fine, works good, but I just like the larger scale if I want to do those larger arm movements. But yeah, with this, obviously this can Velcro back, and this is obviously quite roughly made, but it does the job fantastic, it does the job fine, but you can probably do it much nicer if you wanted to. What's really cool about this is obviously that blocks off all the pencil marks that might come in your bag if you have this in your bag, so having that is really fantastic, obviously. And these, it's obviously cool, but I'll go through them, I think, one by one so you can sort of see. So here we have, obviously that's great for sharpening the pencils, getting them to a super sharp point, which you couldn't necessarily get with a what do you call them, the little smaller pencil sharpeners. And that's obviously so you can do the shading when you hold it like on its side. As well as that, obviously I've got like a big dark thicker black one. Sometimes the HBs and 2B and 2H won't reach the level of blackness that a specialist kind of, like, what's this, this is just a luminance one. You can get I can easily swap this out for a Blackwing pencil, because they get extra lovely darks. You still want the pencil grade, but you want that extra black. You can see I've just got 3 grades. I could have more, but I think, was it F, H, and 2B, but you could easily swap them out for other favourites of yours. Obviously, I don't want to have every single kind of pencil possible. It's just the core basics, and it's just nice to have those 3 grades, which are my main pencils I reach for. I really like the blue Lumiograph, the Mars Lumiograph from Staedtler. They're I found these gave just the nicest, for me, working with them is just, I enjoy them more than other sort of 2B pencils or HBs. I do quite enjoy those. That's just personal preference. I always have like a little red one as well, and that's for just like preliminary sketching or gives you that freedom. And also it's nice to have red, because if you do a pencil sketch and you do a human character, you can do a little bit of red for give a bit of flesh tone as well, so just brightens things up if you want. As well as that, I've got one of these nice little, let's get it out here. Here we go. I forget what they're called. There's probably a name for them here. Let's have a look. Is it Fudenu Suki? Anyway, you can read that, and I really like it because it's got this sort of nib that gives a nice texture when you're working. You do thick and thin. It's like a brush, but you don't have to have a brush. So I really like that one. So this essentially works as like a brush pen. You could easily swap it out with the was it the Tombow or the what's another favourite people like? The pencil brush pen, obviously, but I prefer that one overall. For me, my purposes, this is nice for a bit of. I have to press it down here. I won't do it now, but press it down here and like freshen it up. But obviously, it can store white, so you can obviously take those blacks and cover them over, or do a highlight. If you've got a big dark area and you want to give it a little highlight, you can do that. It's quite nice, especially in grey sketchbooks. So that's the base kit. But here has got various colours. That is the sort of the core rudimentary colours I'd ever need. Obviously, you have the more fleshy tones, and these are just sort of trial and error. Pick out the bare minimum ones I'd want. But for the colour tones, these are quite handy. I did some various tests in this book actually here. Somewhere, I think. Where are they? Here we go. I had pro markers, but the alcohol in them kind of gets me a bit dizzy if I keep on freaking drawing with them. They're quite strong smelling and kind of get a bit much sometimes. And also there's a nice sketchy quality to pencils. So I kind of had my favourite pro markers, and a lot of those colour selections were from one of my favourite artists. I think it's Steven Silver. He did there's a lot of the old Nickelodeon show character designs. I think he always goes on about Kim Possible was one of his designs. And what I like is he has, when he goes out sketching with his pro markers or Copics, he has like a nice colour range, which I've sort of taken, similar to James Gurney, sort of taken a lot from his range. And I find his range, I think it goes quite saturated blue and quite saturated red, like here, blue and red, but his yellows are quite pastely, so it gives that a nice gamut map of colours that actually work all well together, because sometimes you can have colours that just don't work well together when you've got them. Like the green won't go with green, will go really well with a red, but it won't go well with a purple or something. But I find his kind of idea of colours, they work all together. So taking some of his ideas of colour range to pack with you when you want to pack light, and then kind of finding equivalent sort of colours, obviously having my own slight preferences, kind of finding which ones the textures look the nicest, and picking the pencils out. And yes, so often for fleshes I'll start with here and move along up here for the more flashier, redder tones, and the gradients work quite nice. And then obviously I've got some selections for like oranges and reds and yellows that are all unique and nice. Some blues, and obviously I've looked through many different blues and many different colours. It looks kind of haphazard here, but I have every colour here has been thought out, going to the art shop and testing, as you can see these tests here, which one looked the nicest. And obviously even silver pens just in case. Now also I've got these darker pens. I've just got a grey one, and I've got a dark sort of reddy brown one, and they're fantastic for like if you're doing a pencil sketch and you want to, you do a colour pencil sketch and you want to give things a nice outline. That can work really nice too. So I can show you some here, the effects obviously with the pencils. Let's have a look. Now this is fantastic. So this does show, just literally simply just that, and obviously you can see a bit of the white from the brush, and obviously the texture is quite nice. So this is actually a sort of a copy of some other artists' work. I can't remember who, and kind of worked out which one works the nicest for my liking. And yeah, obviously a bit of pen, bit of just the sketchiness of the lines, quite nice. And I think you can see, is it with none of these actually, ironically here, but it can be nice to use these pens for just that more sort of Nickelodeon kids show touch. So I would use that one for flesh especially. It's nice to use a bit of red for the flesh, but also I would use the grey one. Is perfect for pretty much everything else. So you can use that for blue if you've got blue jeans, or if you've got anything that's a cooler colour. So Green, if you've got a green hat, that works fine. Blue jeans, anything just not red, or potentially yellow, or if you want the yellow to have like a warmer feel, use that one, or the yellow to have a cooler feel, just use that one for the outlines. And obviously you can see that's the sort of outline you can see along there and on the outside. So that's sort of my setup now. I don't obviously want to take all the pencils all the time, but I really like this, and that is I'm literally with this I can do basically almost anything really. And obviously if you're okay with Pro markers, they might be the best to go for. But what's great about the pencils is they pack down really, really tight. So I've got pretty much every color I'd ever want there. You get the idea. It's sort of thing you can do. You have this stuff out with you when you're out and about, and you've got this cool little nifty sketch pad here, and you can take that off if you want. And I might update this to be a bit made of nicer, and it's obviously got a board inside as well, so you have the nice board. You can work well and open it up and all the rest of it, close it up and travel around with it, and you're all set to go. So yeah, hope you enjoyed and took something from that. But that's just my current setup, and yeah, take it easy.